Hey guys, Mark Haberstock here. I just want to make a quick video on a big mistake that I see a lot of people making with their webinars. So many people think that a webinar starts with the introduction and ends with the close or the question and answer period. That couldn't be further from the truth, okay? And I'll show you why. So many people sit down and they write their introduction to their webinar. They write their content, they write their close. That's the basic structure for all webinars out there. There's a whole lot more that goes into that, I understand, but that's a totally different video. Okay, so they'll write down their intro, they'll write down their content, they'll write down their close, and then they'll make their presentation slides and they schedule their webinar and they think they have a great webinar. They don't, okay? You could have the best webinar in the world, it probably won't convert very well, and if it does, you're missing a ton of opportunities, okay? And I'll show you why. So a webinar actually starts with the advertisement. The first ad your cold audience sees. The first email in your promotion series to your current audience in your list. The first social media post that you make about it, kind of winding up to the webinar. And it ends not with the close of the webinar, but it ends with the very last email in your follow-up email sequence. Everything in between is what builds the webinar. It's like making a cake. If you miss half the ingredients, it's just not going to turn out, or it's not going to turn out as good as it could. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about why the introduction is so important. In the introduction, so many people think that the purpose of the ad is solely to get people to the registration landing page. And that the registration landing page, the only purpose is to tell them what's going to be on the webinar and collect their name, their email address, and then send them to the confirmation page. And then the confirmation page is simply just to remind them when the webinar is happening, or if it's an automated webinar, a little countdown clock is to show it starting in 10 or 15 minutes. Okay, if that's all you're doing, if it's as simple as that, you're wasting real estate. All of that is real estate. Every time you have an opportunity to engage with your audience, you need to be pre-framing them. And that's what the whole, from the ad or the first email until you say hello on the webinar, you're in the pre-frame stage. So what is pre-framing? The best way I can explain that is, let's say Gary Vaynerchuk's having a webinar. You have no idea who he is, but he's gonna have a webinar on, his 5-step process to generate more leads online. If I tell you, hey, you gotta go look at this guy's webinar, he's a complete idiot. He has no idea what he's talking about. It's gonna be a lot harder for him to convert you on that webinar. Now, he's great, so he still might, but his conversion numbers are gonna be much lower. You're pre-framed to be more critical of everything that he's saying, okay? Versus if I tell you, guys, this guy's holding a webinar, everything he says is gold, he's gonna change the way your business generates leads online. Now you're gonna be a lot more engaged. You might even take notes. It's gonna be a lot easier for him to convert you because you're pre-framed that way. Okay, if you go to seminars, you'll notice that a lot of the top guys, Russell Brunson, Grant Cardone, Tony Robbins, all of them are very, very specific. And they'll tell you this if you follow them. They're very, very specific as to how they are introduced because it's such a big component of whether or not they will convert, okay? It's that pre-frame stage. So here's how the ad looks. A lot of people's ad looks like, I'm holding a webinar and it's gonna show you my 5-step process of generating leads online. Instead, what I would do is say, hey guys, I'm holding a webinar and where I'm gonna show you the 5-step process I used to build a company from 0 to 6 figures in less than 6 months using the simple 5-step process to generate leads online. Okay, that's how I would word it. So you can see how that gives you more to hold on to. You'll be more engaged. You have an after status. You have a desired outcome that you're going to have after, okay? Versus just what you're gonna get on the webinar. You're never promoting your webinar. You're never selling your webinar. You're selling the outcome of your webinar. You're selling the status they're gonna have after the webinar. Okay, that's the true way to promote a webinar. So that's how you run your ad. When they get to your registration page, you're gonna get their information and send them over to a confirmation page. Now, what I'm starting to do with a couple of clients, and we're finding it's working really, really well, is especially with the recorded webinars where they have that little countdown clock, they're waiting there 10, 15 minutes for the webinar to start, is to show a testimonial video. Now, that's not your typical, hey guys, I bought this product, it works really, really well, this is what it did for me, you should buy it too. That's not the time for this testimonial. Instead, it's more of a story, more of a case study. It's showing, hey guys, thanks so much for registering for my webinar. I can't wait to get through all the content with you guys. First, I just want to show you, I want to introduce you to my friend here. We implemented this process for him, and this is what it was able to do for his company. That's the type of video that you want now. It keeps them engaged and it further helps to pre-frame them, okay? So remember, from the moment that you first talk about your webinar, whether it's an email, a social media post, or an ad, to the moment the webinar starts, you use every opportunity you have to pre-frame them, okay? Now, another thing that we're doing with clients is to, especially if you're holding a webinar where you have, say, a 5-step process, we'll include a worksheet. On the confirmation page, we'll say, hey guys, download this worksheet. Make sure that you print it off, bring it to the webinar. We're going to be going through a lot of stuff. You can fill it out as you go and it'll help you. So again, what these help to do is it helps to pre-frame people and it'll skyrocket your attendance rates, okay? It gives them more meat and potatoes to come to the webinar, okay? More reasons to come. So the webinar itself, that's a totally different beast. That's a number of different videos. So now we're going to talk about the follow-up. So many people will end their webinar and immediately the next morning they'll start to calculate their conversion rates. Well, you just can't do that, okay? There's so many factors why somebody might not have taken you up on your offer. A kid ran into the room, there's an emergency, they got an email they had to handle right away, their wallet wasn't with them, something happened with their computer. There's so many different reasons. So just because somebody didn't take your offer on the webinar, it doesn't mean it's a no. It means not right now. It could be any number of those reasons, or it could just mean that they need a little bit more conditioning. Just because they didn't convert on the webinar, you can't just throw them out now. They're still a hot lead, okay? And that's where you craft your follow-up sequence. And you have your follow-up sequence through social media posts and most importantly through email. Okay, you're following up with people to ask what they thought of the webinar, if they had any questions. Okay, you're reminding them of the offer and the timeline on the offer. You're giving them a link where they can watch the replay. Okay, and there's a number of different ways that you can craft your email sequence, but it's very important to have that. When you have all these parts working together, you're gonna have a much more powerful webinar. Okay, people that get on your webinar are going to be much more excited. You're going to have greater attendance rates, and they're going to be pre-framed for your content and your offer. By having the follow-up sequence afterwards and doing it correctly, you're going to see conversions up to a week or two after you hold your webinar. Okay, and it's so important to tap into that and not let those slip through. And that's a big mistake that a lot of people are making. Okay, guys? So remember, your webinar doesn't start with the intro, doesn't end with the offer, the question and answer period. It starts with the ad, ends with the last email and the email sequence, okay? If you have any questions about this or you want to know a little bit more and see how we're doing it with clients, I'd be happy to jump on a call and go through it a little bit more with you guys, okay? Thanks for watching.